Welcome to the first edition of our Insights series. Each week, I bring you a different format and different topic of interest to business. My name is Dragisa Grbac. I'm the Executive Director at Uvidi Consulting, and I'll be your host for the series. Today's topic is false starts with transformation. Business transformations are not new, but the dash toward digital technology has made it a management mandate that will last for years to come, possibly as long as a decade. The financial services industry has seen a surge in the last 2 to 3 years, and yes, there have been some false starts. This presentation will look at 4 common contributors to false starts. Transformation is a huge topic today, and I'll be looking at only a sliver of it. Perhaps you've experienced a false start, or maybe not. But the insights I'll share are based on experiences by those who have had a redo of their transformation plans. I'll look at the following 4 areas. The uncertainty factor. This implies the confidence level management has in the overall vision, direction, and capabilities. Next, management's engagement and focus. Then organizational alignment, and finally, risk. At the end, I'll sum up with 3 shared insights, and all this in less than 15 minutes. Let's first look at the uncertainty factor. Any type of large-scale change program, digital or otherwise, is always fraught with uncertainty. What creates that uncertainty? It can sometimes start with the confidence that leadership has, asking about the how instead of why. This implies a deep interest in execution as opposed to the continuing effectiveness of the strategy. Then there are thoughts about the potential cannibalization of profits. And of course, other priorities are competing for time and attention. And finally, there's the provocative, disruptive, uncomfortable, and often ambitious nature of change. Everyone wants to get to the finish line sooner rather than later. Sometimes the road is not exactly clear. If you consider this, many of the leaders today are facing full-on transformation for the first time in their career. In the financial sector especially, we have not seen such a massive overhaul of institutions since the 1970s. For the past 20, 30 years, change has been occurring on an incremental basis until now. This is a fundamental rethink of the corporate model. The complexity and magnitude of change is unprecedented. There is undoubtedly anxiety over payback and what new value is being created. Many organizations are taking on transformation as a project. In my view, this is a mistake. These are very important programs that will redefine the organization for years to come. It should be led at the top of the house by seasoned programmed executives who have experience with enterprise transformation, not project managers or even very senior project managers. A seasoned program leader has valuable strategic experience and works with executives who are new to the effects of a wholesale transformation. Of course, having executives engaged at the most senior levels from the start is a must. It is their responsibility to ensure that the transformation message has been communicated to all levels, and principally the why behind the message becomes key. Though management changes could occur in that time, it is important to maintain the momentum and the tone at the top. The commitment and focus of management has to be maintained throughout the duration of the transformation initiative, though in some large organization, as mentioned before, it could be a decade before the final results are in and tallied. We can all acknowledge that technology is the catalyst for change, but the ongoing focus is on the fundamental rethinking of the corporate business model. Yet the thinking can change over time. The objective remains to create a new business model that is better with each iteration and revision. As long as there is continual focus on the why, this is the raison d'être for the changes. The aspects of how the execution will be designed will be very clear once there is clarity and purpose, as is often the case with many things in life. Above all, leaders of transformation have to be disciplined to allow themselves to establish priorities and the measures that will determine if the intended impact is being achieved. Finally, think outcomes, think benefits. Each must be continually measured along the way to ensure that what is being anticipated is being delivered. One of the greatest contributors to a false start is the lack of organizational alignment. This means taking a very sober assessment of the strategic objectives against the operational capabilities. One cannot have a diluted sense of, oh, we'll get it done, but it must be a very pragmatic assessment of whether the organization, its leadership and all, are ready to go where digital is taking business. Some simple examples that often highlight challenges include the decision-making process, the coming cultural shift, the training investment, and the siloed structures that exist today, and there are more. Some key fail points we've seen include instances where a vision for digital is not consistent with the vision for operational capabilities of the future, including technologies and a design for how work will be done. Design thinking and systems thinking are essential. The organization has to change by design, and it must be seen as a living system that has many interdependent functions. Transformation itself must be designed to achieve stated objectives, both strategic and operational. On this slide, you see an illustration. This is our alignment model. It has guided dozens of organizations to ensure their objectives are the focus of attention. Ask us how we can help you use this to achieve your objectives. Agile development is recognized as a more efficient method in the IT areas of organization. But for a transformation to succeed, the business must also learn to be agile in all its functions, including creating the customer experience, complaint resolution, and again, decision-making must be much more efficient. By defining what the digital culture will mean, everyone can begin to align with strategic and operational visions of a transformed organization. Without it, there won't be much of a transformation, just more incremental change that creates new gaps in capabilities. And finally, I come to risk. The false starts that I've witnessed have been in large part contributed to by weak and unstructured risk identification, assessment, monitoring, and tracking. The same old approach is being used that pay lip service to a checklist, risk registers, and reports on a periodic basis. A transformation leader needs to be on top of the gaps, the vulnerabilities, the criteria, and the assumptions on a daily basis and at every stage of the program. Without a systematized approach to program risks, there could be a serious derailing that should have been identified as an emerging risk. The greatest risks are in the gaps between the objectives and outcomes. Failure to execute the program strategy effectively because of inadequate organizational capabilities is the single biggest risk of transformation. When gaps are large enough, strategies fail, and the question then becomes, why didn't we see it coming? The greatest connection is between risk and alignment. Failing to foresee misalignments between strategy and operational capabilities is the risk. The senior team needs to focus on clarity of the strategy to continually drive the program forward. Too much focus on the how causes undue pressure on delivery, creating risk, especially if there are gaps in capabilities. And if that's the case, no one wants to be the bearer or the listener of the bad news that follows. Now, let's summarize the 3 insights that have come from looking at transformation in the past couple of years. First, insufficient business agility is causing technology to lead strategy. The process is held up by decision-making that seems to take too long a time. We have found too many companies are being led by the excitement and fast pace of digital tech instead of focusing on creating business agility. The organization, the business, must determine its own fate and design. Next, if the why is not crystal clear, no amount of how will create clarity for decisive action. Simply put, just because the rest of the industry is doing this transformation is no reason to do the same. We have found that few organizations have found their voice in creating what will be their differentiation. The why continually must drive all the outcomes. So I ask you, is your business the driver of transformation, or is technology? And lastly, and this one came as a little bit of a surprise, the knowing-doing gap is becoming apparent. For many leaders, as I mentioned earlier, this will be the first time they have undertaken a transformation in their career. Ask yourself if your transformation is being led by someone who has the experience. What guidance are they getting? Think of game theory. The first time you try it, you're bound to make mistakes. And so far in transformation, this has not been too different. This concludes this week's Insights. I invite your questions, comments, and inquiries about our highly successful approach to risk-based strategic program management. At Uvidi, we use provocative thinking and pragmatic solutions to help our clients raise the bar and close the gaps that make it possible for them to achieve their objectives. Until next week, this is Dragisa signing off.